The last topic that we'll cover is sound quality and written dynamics. One of the things that jurors really listen for is a good sound quality. You need to be able to produce a good sound, and it depends on the instrument that you're playing, how you achieve that sound. For the violin, there's a couple instruction videos on bow holds and things that might help you in the description below. For a trumpet, it will be totally different. So seek out advice from your teachers, your teacher at school, or if you have a private teacher, ask them, or even a colleague, somebody that you really like their sound, ask them how they do it. Jurors will really be listening for good sound quality, not only in your pieces, but also in your scales. So make sure that you're producing the biggest, brightest sound in your scales that you can. For pieces, this sort of translates beyond sound quality to the instructions that are printed. Too often, people lose auditions just because they simply didn't notice what was on the page. For the Oregon Music Education Association audition for 2020, they picked out 2 excerpts with a lot of information beyond just piano, forte, mezzo forte. You have to be aware of the dashes and the dots and all the other things in between. So let's go ahead and do both excerpts sort of in completion, slowly, and making sure that we're doing all the written instructions. The first excerpt that we're going to be working on is Beethoven's Symphony No. 7, second movement. Looking at the page, we're seeing a lot of staccatos, a lot of bowings that have been changed, and they've given us written instructions that the bowings can be changed by our teacher. So I'll be doing a bowing that I'm very familiar with because I've done it in a professional setting. You can go ahead and use these bowings if you'd like, and you can go ahead and use these fingerings as well, which I've changed up just for my own comfort. So to start off with, we have piano. And when they say piano in an audition, they mean as quiet as you can possibly play. If there's a pianissimo later on down the road, it's okay to play a little bit louder, but they really want it to be obvious. So use all of your instrument techniques you can to achieve a result. For violinists, because this is piano, I probably play it in the upper half of the bow at the very least. I play it very close to the fingerboard, and I'd also play with very little hair to start with. Keep in mind that there's a crescendo poco a poco, which goes all the way to the forte, so we have some room to grow. There's a ton of information that we have to take from the page through our instrument and project it to an audience member. We also have a bunch of staccatos, and this is Beethoven's time period. It's not modern music, it's not Vivaldi either, so they need to be fairly light, especially in this piano, and also separate. The bowing that I'm actually doing helps serve the bowing that is actually written in the part a little bit better than the one you may have been given. So go ahead and give mine a try and see if it works for you. So we made sure to increase the amount of bow that we're using, increase the amount of hair that we're using, increase the amount of vibrato that we use as we get to the fortissimo, which just keeps on building. So let's continue from that point. This is measure 75, which is marked fortissimo. You'll notice that there's really not a whole lot of dynamics until much further down the road, but there is contour of line. So if you see something go up, try and increase the volume a little bit. If you see something go down, try and decrease the volume a little bit. It's not big enough for Beethoven to have to write, a decrescendo with everything. Another thing that you need to be aware of is whether or not your melody or harmony or just plain static in the background. By adjusting your dynamic when you're the harmony to be a little bit less than an imaginary melody line would be, it makes your audition stand out that much more because I guarantee you any conductor listening to you has the whole score in his mind. So by showing him that you know that you're not melody and you're not going to cover them at that moment, it makes you a more valuable player and makes your audition stand out among the others. So for example, in measure 83, there are other instruments that have far more interesting melody than you do at that moment. And yet violinists get to that point and they're like, oh my goodness, I love this. So make sure that you don't overdo it at that moment, because there is another member of the orchestra that needs to cut through whatever you're playing. So here, with all the dynamics and being aware of what's happening on the recording, we're going to start in measure 75 and go to the end of this excerpt. The next excerpt that we're going to be looking at, we're going to be taking slowly. Starting in measure 11, we have a pianissimo next to a sforzando. The sforzando is going to be the type of sforzando that exists in a pianissimo. It's not going to be a pianissimo, fortissimo sforzando. It's going to be a small push in the dynamics instead of a socket to your face kind of thing. We also have just a billion and two staccatos littering this excerpt. Because it's pianissimo, they're going to be especially light. If you listen to this piece in particular, you'll pick up on the nuances and the character of the piece that is so light and fluffy and delightful and not heavy or harsh at all. So here we go with this excerpt, nice and slow for those who are first learning it. Thanks so much for watching, and if you have any requests or questions, please leave it in the comment section below. I will go ahead and get back to those when I can. And go ahead and give this video a like if you would. It really helps me out when you do. And subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more videos like this. Thanks so much for watching, and happy practicing!